Hello, Freddy and Magda.
Hello, teacher. Good evening.
Good evening, teacher.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Well, teacher, I'm just watching the news for today.
Uh-huh.
It's at CTTV. Yes.
Okay. What
But well,
about you, Magda?
teacher,
Okay. Magda, how are you doing at work? Magda? Freddy, what about your work?
nice teacher. I just worked just at around 5 p.m. But well, the main bus station is so alone. But I just share ideas and moments with my mates. Yes, the police station, but the people is are not over there because the terminal is closed.
So what you have to do?
Just security teacher to do this structure with secure for people, and maybe attend different requires from people around Salitre's neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
But well, teacher just do fines in order to follow the law. At this case, 1801, yes, the National Police law just did fine, and in order to follow the instructions by the president. Yes, just my word, teacher.
Okay. So you have to check that everybody's at home.
Yes, teacher. Yes, around terminal. Yes.
Did you have to go today to to Salitre?
Yes, teacher. Yes, every day.
Did,
For around 15 days. After that, I just take a rest. But okay, maybe the next weekend I will take a rest. But before that, I just work around 15 days, complete 15 days.
did you see people exercising today?
Yes, teacher. In the last days, the people are maybe visiting um, in order to other days in form crowded around the mall, around the terminal, maybe because the situation is hard. Yes, for people,
Okay.
for all people. Yes,
Okay, thank you, Freddy, for
thanks,
telling
teacher.
me about your work.
Okay.
Hello, Karen, Clara, Monica, Imelda, Magda.
Hello,
Hello,
teacher.
teacher.
Hello.
Okay, girls, I'm Freddy. Let's start. Uh, Last time we reviewed the topic of task-based learning, which is a method, right? Who can mention the generalities of that method, like a summary of what we have been studying about that method.
What method, teacher, from the last class?
Yes, task-based learning.
Okay. Well, teacher is just to have a project in order to teach something in a classroom or a teaching space, and maybe to set an instructions for the students in order to set a creative work with tasks, with different objectives for the students, and maybe contextualize the needs that the student has. And maybe before that is necessary to set a previous research, in order to know what do the students need.
Okay, but what you mentioned about the task is key, is the core of task based. So to have a task. And what type of tasks did we have last week as examples of possibilities for lessons?
Okay, teacher, my topic was regarding on phrasal verbs, and maybe some tasks in order to understand what is the ways to understand that, maybe with sharing ideas into each other, and maybe for doing some activities related to videos related with listening tasks, maybe with different creative activities, uh, for not doing a boring class, just to set a creative by project based learning, and maybe is in order to set a comprehension by students, in order to set an interesting class. That's it.
Okay, Freddy. So you mentioned that a task could be to exchange ideas, yes, about
Yes.
different topics. So a task
Yes.
should be similar to what we do in Spanish with when we talk to people. We read or we listen to information and we share ideas about that information. That can be a task. But we do other things with language, such as buy things, invite people, uh, such as what else? Well, buy different objects. Those are also tasks. So tasks are like things that we do in real life with language, and that is the core, the most important part of task-based learning. What else do we have into account when we use task-based learning for teaching? Besides that we have a task, what other steps we have to follow?
Teacher was, or maybe based on the videos that you shared us in the last task, this case was third task, um, I just wrote down some recommendations related to set an interesting task, not just only a homework, just only an activity. It's just only with set up feeling to connect with the students, maybe with a cultural or economic, social, or maybe what the each one need, at this case, not only the group of the students need the same thing.
Yes, Freddy.
Maybe,
So we have tasks that are related to exchange information about cultural aspects or social aspects. That is
yes.
a task. And who remembers, let's say Clara or Monica, any of you, who remembers the stages that we need to follow in a class with task-based learning?
Uh, Teacher, I don't know. I think that it is necessary to begin with a warm up.
Yes, a warm-up is important, so we have to students engaged in the lesson, so we focus their attention. And after the warm-up, we present the task that, as Freddie mentioned, can be to exchange information about a topic or to present a conversation about somebody who is buying a food, or a person who is inviting another person to go to the movies. All those are tasks. So we present the task after the warm up. And after that, what do? We are reviewing, right? The stages.
Yes, I think that it's important to set up to to know the context.
The
Give a,
context is in the task. So if you tell the student,
um,
today we are going to learn how to ask for food in a restaurant, or today we are going to study how to give our opinions about a, a cultural aspect, or today we are going to learn how to invite somebody to the movies. And that is the context, because you are not giving the vocabulary, a list of
mhm,
vocabulary, or you are not explaining grammar, but you are telling what they can do with the language, or what they uh, need to be able to do with the language at the end. After the warm up and after presenting the task, what do we have to do?
Teacher, the schema building stage.
And what is that?
Maybe it's just not to focus on the task, maybe to set a different tool in order to practice the understanding from students,
Okay.
maybe
So,
to share video, or maybe to share a different uh, tool in order to understand in the students, in order to wake up the understanding in the students.
okay. The other stages, as you mentioned, are related to helping the students understand, as you mentioned, comprehend the
Exactly.
task.
Yes.
Exactly. So you
Yes.
tell the students, here we have an example of a conversation on how to invite somebody to the movies. Now you need to use different strategies to help the students understand that task or that example.
Yes.
That list of activities, there is one stage in which you help the students analyze grammar patterns, but also you need to help the students practice pronunciation, understand the meaning of the words in the conversation, and you need to have students understand the sentences in the conversation, and at the end, what they have to do at the end of the stages, the last stages.
They had to do the production of the very first task, the objective of the communication objective, like it was to talk about something. They had to apply it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So if we ask them to give their opinions about a topic at the beginning of the lesson as a task, at the end they have to do that. They have to give their opinions. If at the beginning of the class we ask the students to read a conversation about how to invite a person to the movies, at the end they have to create a conversation to invite a classmate to the movies. So as Henry mentioned, they have to produce, either to speak or to write their own conversations, or to give in an oral or in a written way their own opinions about the topic that was mentioned as a task. Okay, that is to review the structure of a class with task-based learning. Now we are going to check how to work with a projects in a class. So let me share the screen so you can with some pictures you can uh, think about the videos that you watch for that task. So here you see the pictures of the tasks in the videos that you watched 2 weeks ago, right? So those are some projects. For example, Didier, what do you remember about this project? What was the idea of this project?
The idea is to make a chair with I don't know, recyclable materials uh,
Recycle material.
for the TD, for the favorite TD from the children
Okay, that was
of the class.
uh-huh. And
Yes.
what subjects were uh, linked for that project? So what type of tasks did the students do, and what subjects were connected with the development of the task?
The tax. Okay,
Well,
teacher.
sorry,
The
the
idea
project.
is to
The
make a
project, yeah, the project was to make the chair for a toy.
yeah. Is that yeah?
Okay, what subjects, science, history, music, what subjects were linked to that project?
I don't know. I don't remember. The subject. I don't remember, teacher.
In order to build the chair, they had to measure, they had to use the ruler, right? And
Yeah,
measure and calculate. So maths were there,
maths. Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, so when we work with projects, we usually use knowledge from other subjects, from science or from history or from music, with English in order to create a project, usually. Good, Didier. So,
About calculation is in no. Okay, that's right.
okay, here we have, this is the same. These are the photos about the project of building a chair for a toy. That was for preschoolers, right? Now, this project, what was the idea of this project? Who remembers?
The the main idea was um,
Okay, somebody remembers Magda,
uh,
Imelda?
Teacher, I remember that a student was excuse me, I don't remember the word for interview other student about different activities done in the school, and then they was they put the information in different tasks. For example, in the picture, the student um, was working in math.
Okay, good, Imelda. So for this project, maths was also linked with the idea of uh, asking others about their preferences regarding activities carried out at the school. So their final objective was to present students' favorite activities by, as Dinanda mentioned, interviewing others and uh, by adding all the results in order to put that into a graph. So maths and Spanish were used in this case. All right, and here, what is this? Who remembers?
Co-evaluation.
An evaluation. And what do students have, or how can we assess students? What is the criteria to assess students? Is just if they speak correctly, if they use grammar and pronunciation correctly, or what other criteria do we assess?
The functions of these roles, they had to score the other classmates where they were working in group. So if they do their part of the project because they were assigned in roles, different roles.
Very good, Henry. So if they have different roles, like one of you is going to interview, the other is going to make the calculations, the other is going to draw the graph, and the other is going to present the information in front of the class. So in this rubric, they need to take into account students' participation in order to complete the project, right? That is one criteria. What other criteria do you consider is can be assessed or can be added in a rubric for projects? For example, in this project, you see that chairs are very different, the chairs that students created. So what criteria can you assess here? Besides that students understood the instructions.
The creativity.
Exactly. You can, for example, in this case, assess students' creativity.
Yes, use imagination.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. So with projects, we don't have everything planned. We have a driving question. Do you remember that? A driving question that could be in the case of this project with preschoolers, the driving question is what would be necessary for a toy to be comfortable when reading or pleasure? And the students answer a chair. So they created the chair. The driving question for this project was what is the favorite activity for students at the school? So they interview it and do the other tasks to come up with the answer. So besides having a driving question, what else is important before starting a project?
Teamwork, teacher.
Uh, could you give us details about that idea? Monica? What else do we do? We need. So we have a question, and what else do we need to tell students before they start working on the project?
So to find out about previous knowledge the students have.
Exactly.
Okay,
So
so it's a matter that we can, yes.
let's say if they are going to build a chair, so we need to know if they already know the numbers. So if they can use a ruler to make the calculations. Yes. If not, so we need to teach that. So what do students know and what they don't know to finish the project? What else? Students' previous knowledge, the driving question, what else?
The objectives.
The objectives. What do we want students to learn with when we ask them to build a chair? We want them to learn maths, right? In that case. In this case, we might want them to learn how to ask questions in English to interview a person. And we want them also to learn some maths. Okay, so we have the driving question, the objective, the previous knowledge. What else?
So it is really important to establish the roles that each student is gonna carry out in the project. For example, it's not the same just in primary school, preschoolers. You know, we have to help them to to give them roles. You know.
Exactly. So with adolescents, they will decide on the roles. But with preschoolers and primary school students, they will need some help. So we know them more. So we will say, if we identify the leader, so we will give that student the role of giving instructions or organizing the information, etc. So we know we will help them if they are preschoolers or primary school students. Okay, what else? If what else if, for example, in this case, for this, what is the recommendation of the teacher in the video about the classroom, the visuals in the classroom?
Teacher,
Ready?
the teacher needs to be creative. Maybe it's 70 or 80% of all activity, competitive and developer of useful ideas to set a project-based learning, and maybe to set an attractive content for students, clear objectives that somebody mentioned, and standard structures by reviewing the curriculum. Maybe what do the student needs?
Uh-huh.
What does the student need? Yes, maybe to focus on the new era of teaching. Yes, not the before era. Maybe just to be in a particular cultural and socioeconomical contrast. Yes, I think.
Okay, to have in mind students' interests, usually teachers are the ones who decide the the projects. I mean the driving question. So
Yes.
as Freddie mentioned, usually teachers need to take into account the school curriculum in order to see what are the topics that students need to study and find out if there is a project that can include different topics in the curriculum so that they can carry out a project. In other cases, students are the ones who decide on the topic they want to research and on the topic of their projects. Okay, good. So we have the curriculum to be creative, students' interest, objectives, what we want the students to learn, students' previous knowledge, um, the what else did we mention? The driving question. You remember that the teacher mentions that it is very a good idea to decorate the classroom with images related to the project.
Yes, that's really important. Another thing is as all we know, work in team or groups is not that easy, and we need to guide and help students to get used to work with other classmates in order to be um, social, you know,
Uh-huh.
because probably are students that are not, I mean, are shy, or, you know, we need to help them to develop these skills in cooperatively, yes, work.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Cooperative work.
cooperate, yeah.
Exactly. So that teacher mentions that he suggests that teachers help students to start working in pairs or groups previously to work with projects by the first time if they are not used to do that. So that students, as you mentioned, start being more sociable and start learning how to cooperate to do different tasks. And as you mentioned, sociability and cooperative work can be included in the rubric. So that's also the thing that we can tell students what we want to assess with the project, that they develop cooperative skills, social skills, leadership skills, creative skills, among others.
Like the 21st century skills, it is
Exactly.
necessary. It must be used in this kind of methodology.
Exactly. So look at the here, we are not assessing only grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary as we usually do. We assess other skills, the 21st century skills that you are reading this week. You're reading this week about that. Okay, good. So here with projects, we don't have a step by step. We don't have as Nuna's stages, but we have an idea, general idea of things that we need to have in mind when working with projects. And the only way to know how it works is to do it. So if you have a group of students, try, think about something that fits students' ages and students' knowledge of English to start a project. Try how it works, and you will see what needs to be improved or what it works well with your students. Some of you have already been teaching in the schools, Natalia, Lauren, and for example, Dinalda and Henry. Uh, so you have also been, you have also experienced teaching. I don't know if any of you have used projects. Henry, have you used projects in your class?
Well, I have used a STEAM methodology that is similar to projects because we had to focus on a project and you had to give them roles and you had to use the 21st century skills too, and you had to integrate also math, science, art, and other subjects it is integrated in STEAM methodology. But we also use one-in-one course to a project-based learning
Do you have
methodology.
suggestions for your classmates since you have been working on something similar?
Well, working in project is pretty good and it's pretty interesting, and students really like that because they are not just focused on doing something specific, because they have to create, develop, they have to think how are they going to do this project at the end. So that's the fun part, because they start to work in groups. They have to decide who's going to do this, and they have to identify their skills. So they know that, oh, you can do this because you're good in this, and your job during this is to is guidance and giving like instructions and be with them and see what are they doing, and but let them think. And it's pretty good. I really like it. So if you want to use it, you have to, if you want to start to use it, you have to take into account, or you can start um, seeing other samples, or watching video or so. so you can get comfortable and start to use it, because you're gonna be the big leader in the project. So you have to guide them, and you have to be really clear with instructions. Otherwise, they're gonna be misunderstood and stuff during the process. That's what I had to say.
Thank you. So you mentioned that in your experience, the teacher is the person who guides the students, who tells them uh, maybe this way or maybe this other idea, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes,
And you mentioned that students make decisions, right? So that can be
yes,
also part of the rubric. So to see if students develop that skill of making decisions, or if they ask teacher the teacher a lot of questions and they rely or they are not good at making decisions. So that could be a part of the rubric. Good. Lauren and and Dinalda, have you ever used projects in your classes?
Teacher, I don't know if you know PTA program. We have
Tell us about it, please.
a tutor, a PTA tutor, and she told us that it's important that the student have a role, especially the student that could be I don't know what is the word, teacher, for say bad behavior.
To avoid misbehavior. Misbehavior.
Thanks, teacher. So especially the role of monitor should have the student that have misbehavior, because they need to to catch the attention of the other student, and this is the best possibility. And January, she told us that it was important that we start with projects, but the project should cover all the areas, subjects. For example, we
Topics. Topics of the course. The topics, let's say, um, family members, food.
but for example, in Spanish, in math, and
Okay.
the same
Understand.
top, the same topic for cover all subjects.
Subjects, yes. So, okay, go ahead.
Um, so we talk the excuse me, teacher, for my bad, mispronounce in my slow pronounce. The jungle was the number, but she told us that the number should be attractive for the children. So we named the project the Magic Jungle, and we decorate all the classroom with um, animals and different things about the jungle. Look like I don't remember what is the method. Someone can help me. We
the
so the
method.
med
But I
mm,
understand your idea. So, in science, students will study like the differences among animals in the jungle. In maths, students could, for example, calculate the difference between the weight of some animals. Which of the animals in the jungle weighs more, which weighs less, what is the most dangerous, what is the least dangerous, etc. To calculate in, let's say, history, students could come up with information about uh, the oldest animal or the changes the animal has suffered, etc. So that's the idea when you mentioned that the topic for the project was used for all the subjects.
yes, teacher.
In English, what was the idea? What did the students have to do?
The names of the animals.
They had to learn the names. And something else besides learning the names in English, did they have to do something else?
Excuse me, teacher.
For the English class, the idea was that the students learned the words of the names of the animals of the jungle.
Yes, teacher.
In addition, did they have to do something else for the English classes?
No, teacher, because the time for English is shorter. It's an hour for week.
Okay, however, an idea could be to compare animals. That is a simple task. Compare them in terms of weight, in terms of how dangerous they are, or in terms of how big, small, etc. So that could be part of the project, and it's a task because just learning the words is not meaningful. It's just learning vocabulary, but to make it a little bit more challenging could be to have students compare the animals.
Thanks, teacher, for the
Okay,
idea.
but you mentioned that is one of the role of the teacher was to monitor what the students had to do in their groups. That is other role. Good. Lauren, have you ever used projects?
Mm, well, in the place where I work, what I have to do at the end of each term is that the students have to make a presentation in front of the school, and they have to, well, they are divided in groups, and they have to talk about something. So we decide the topic, and then we make a research, and they prepare like a presentation about the topic. For example, the culture of a specific place in a country. I don't know. So they they make the research. I guide them, so they prepare everything, and they wear costume and those things, and uh, at the end of the term, so they have to make the presentation. So they are evaluating in speaking. That's like the evaluación bimestral of them.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. So you
Mhm.
mentioned that they have to research, students have to research, have to make decisions about the information they are going to present and create the way they are going to present it.
Yes.
Good. Monica, just raise your hand.
Teacher, I do projects in my job. I do project by bimestral, bi monthly.
Every 2 months.
Okay. for example, the family, the animals, the professionals. These projects seek meaningful learning. The experience is very important. The feeling, they are little babies, my students. They must experiment, they compare, the projects are integrate. For example, language, I see vocabulary, for example, family names, science experiments, math, I see um, numbers and count, no more.
Okay, Monica, that's a good example of projects. In your case, they are babies, so the projects are very easy, very simple. So in the case of babies, they have to experience different, I guess, textures or situations.
Sensorially, perception.
Mhm. Good. So that the objective there is not to have them memorize, for example, the name of objects, but have them learn through experience, right? So that's what we do with new ways of teaching. We change from memory to having students learn the 21st century skills, experience things, research, make decisions, create. And what we do is to monitor them, to guide them. And the curriculum is built with the students because we don't have a plan that as it does base, we need to follow some structures or some stages. But students may ask questions, we answer, students, we help them. So based on their decisions, on their interests, we build the curriculum in a way with them. So you remember the criticism of the movie The Forbidden Education about education? What were the main criticism made to the traditional education? Clara, for example, or Magda.
Well, I remember that they criticized the traditional education, the old methods that it's still in, we are still using in our classrooms. Like the teacher is center of the classroom and not the student, and yeah, some methodologies.
Teacher in the traditional education, the teacher is the center of the education, but not the student. It's the problem with the traditional education. To the students is the students is it's century of the knowledge and the memory, only memory, but nor is effective. To the students not participate in the group activities. Is individually worked usually usually the students hands off for participate in class, no initiative. And the traditional education no prepare students for leadership. Not this methodology not prepare students for the communicative effective, for example. And the traditional method not prepare students for the thinking pensadores críticos,
Thinking.
perspective.
Critical thinking.
Okay, no, only the students only repeat the instructions to the teacher. Only repeat, and memory. It's very complex. In the adult, excuse me, when the person are adult, uh, the system is relevant those problems that this methodology.
Exactly.
Also,
Clara?
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
who wants to talk?
You,
yes.
Clara, do it. Go ahead.
Just the students. No, everyone have to know the same, and it's a homogeneous thing, or something like that. I forgot. I opinion. Okay, Henry.
Well, yes, here they learn the same information. So if they don't make decisions, for example, in the case of Vinalda's project about animals, they need to research, and so they need to decide on which animal they want to research about. In that way, each person will have different information, not the same information about a different animal. And then after that, they can share the information, but they don't learn the same through research. That's the idea. Okay, Henry?
Yes, teacher. Well, about the video, let's start saying about the traditional education because I was really shocked by getting all this information that the video gave me because I didn't know that the traditional education was so bored and and I felt identified in some cases when I was watching the video because it was like the some of part of the education that I get when I was a child in the public schools, and it's this traditional education it is bored and it is also just focused on the curriculum, and also in all curriculums there are not a date to this time. So for the needs that the students are having, you know. So this traditional education, besides of being bored, it is bad that it is just focused and create like robots or people that doesn't need to think. Just you need to read this and you need to learn it and you have to do it. Why? Because I say so and because I am the teacher and I am like giving just following the rules of the government, and that's what it is. And the government said that we have to do this, and and we have to do it. So it is more about like giving just the student the information and tell them that they have to do it, and it is just because they're going to, if they do it, they're gonna become in good people or they can get a job in something particular. But it's because the system create this traditional education just to put workers when they finish the school, so they know. Oh, and I remember something really that they say that they were creating. Well, in the last times they had workers, but they didn't study. So so we're like kind of workers that they were done. So what they think in the politics and the governments and so just to give them studies so they can have now workers, but a little bit more intelligent. So it was like, oh, that's not good. And then when you saw the other part of the movie, you realize that this new education or these new methods are working in, and that's what the world needs at the moment. And but it's still being something of the governments and politics and other influences that have the power to do whatever they want, and we just have to follow. We have just follow the leaders, like they say. That's what I had to say. Thank you.
Exactly. So if we have students repeat and follow orders, that's the skills that they developed. Follow orders for a job that needs that ability. Good. Monica, you raised your hand.
Teacher, about the video,
Uh-huh.
the traditional education promotes the individualism, discrimination, conditionation, teachers are children of a system, feelings, no, education is an authoritarian regimen. It is important for the traditional education, the grades or quantifications, awards, and punishments.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So if you don't learn, if you don't memorize information, you are not promoted to the next course. But it's very important that we tell the students, or we make sure that the students understand what they can do with that information. So in the case of this picture, if they learned that formula, what can they do with that formula in real life? It's not just to memorize the formula created by Einstein, that what can be done with the formula, so that at the end when they start uh, working, when they get a job, they have they can analyze and create and do something else, not just repeat.
We must prepare students for face the reality that is our society, not only to impose content, based on content, because as someone in the video says that it will be useless. Students won't memorize or won't remember anything about that. So they will lost everything, So the only things that we can do is let them to know, allow them to be creative, not to make them feel like with the not, just to oh my god, what is the word for that?
Probably limit
Yes, limit the students just with our content, and that's it. Yeah.
Good. Didier, what caught your attention about the video? About is Didier here?
No, teacher.
Okay, Luisa, what caught your attention about the forbidden education?
My okay, I like the video, the possibility that the teacher have in this moment to transform the education
Transform.
transform, sorry, the education, and the teacher has the possibility to create new words in the students, in his students or their students, depends to the knowledge or the curriculum, but the curriculum is not in the education is very important because it's it's how do you say, como in English, como marca, como guía, is the guide, is the guide to buy the plans or the lessons. But the teacher can to play with a different method, different resource, and different um, context with his students for create experience that can allow to students to build the knowledge or aprendizaje significativo. How do you say
Meaningful,
aprendizaje significativo in English?
meaningful learning.
Meaningful learning. Okay.
Okay.
And the video show the reality education, the realities in education in America Latina or the and the different countries uh, that the countries have uh, new models of education, but in the reality, in the real life, they countries use the traditional method.
Uh-huh.
For example, um, school B, uh, promotion, its new methods and Montessori, um, um, education, for example, about uh, based in projects and based in experience. But when you visit these educations or visit the classroom, the teacher has how do you say clase magistral?
A traditional class.
A traditional class. The students um, in front of the table and the teacher is only that talks, tell, and the students never talk in the class.
Okay. Students are in front of the board and
In front of the board.
they don't participate. Uh-huh. They have a
Okay,
passive role.
passive role in the education.
Okay. Didier, Didier.
Yes, teacher.
Okay, Didier. How do you imagine a class in which students don't have to memorize vocabulary, repeat words, and learn structures? An English class. What can be done in an English class so students don't only memorize structures, grammar, and vocabulary?
What kind? Other kind of class about
Yes, other type of class. So what
other
can be done in class so that students just don't memorize information?
through I don't know if it's possible to learning through on web
Using the
or
web?
yes
How?
or using the yes the simple examples on the web. Mm, the
What
other
what type of activities would you ask students to do with the internet so that they just don't only memorize words or learn words and learn grammar? What could you ask students to do with the internet?
and well I don't know it's possible to learn about through different activities, for example, videos or no, yes, or games, simple games
And yes, so
on different.
those are the tools. You have a game, you have a video, or a book. But
Do,
the
yeah,
important thing is not the
or,
important thing is
or, 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 a short tale, no?
Okay, but that is a material.
With simple words.
That is a material. I can have a story. I can have
Yes.
a tale. I can have a
We
book. I can have internet. I can have a game. But what would you tell the students to do with that? Memorize the tale or what?
memorize the tales with with support. Well, support.
No, Didier, but if you
Uh,
tell the students to
Like
memorize the tale, that is traditional education. What are they going to do with, what is the objective of memorizing the tale? Can they do that something uh, meaningful when they memorize the tale? Something they can do in real life. If they memorize a tale, they can use that information in real life to do something.
yeah. Yes, but basically, I think that it's important that the learning is support with um, images or
Images. Again,
images.
yes, all those are materials, Didier. I can use images, I can use a book, I can use a tale, I can use internet, and I can use games.
Flash flashcards.
Flashes, yes, but that is not the important thing. The important thing is what you tell students they have to do with that. If you tell students they have to memorize information, that tell that lead us to traditional education, so that the only ability that they will develop is to memorize. So the important thing is to think what would you tell students to do with the material, with the game, or the internet, or the tale, or the book, or the flashcard.
Teach them to research.
Okay. If you tell them use the
Yeah.
internet to research,
Thank you.
then the ability that they will develop is to analyze information, select information, make conclusions, organize information.
Yes,
That
teacher.
is different.
Yes, teacher.
Okay. Anybody else wanted to say something?
Teacher, Natalia,
Natalia.
I can tell an experience, my experience. Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. And teacher, and the video only my personal opinion. The video only use agreeing teaching we must educate for me, developing different teaching methods that provide good learning. For example, I was including project to teach English to children with how do you say necesidades educativas especiales.
With special needs, students with special needs.
Okay. Um, a student with uh, Asperger, syndrome Down, mm, different news. Children's project are very important rule, and we realize that they can learn a second language easily. The role of the teacher while essential the project, including the children role play, video, song. I remember that in the class provide different food, for example, salad, fruit, different activities. Is good
Because
experience.
they have some limitations, right? So the skills that you wanted to develop on them was have them, or at least know how to prepare a fruit salad, because that's what's gonna be useful for them outside the classroom. What did you want to develop on the students when you asked them to role play, or when you asked them to create a conversation? What skills?
Teacher, for example, in the role play, the children entonaban canciones,
Sang?
songs, para fortalecer su aprendizaje, learning.
To reinforce their learning.
Okay, right, the learn.
Okay, Natalia, but you have experience with those students with special needs. What are their limits? What can they actually do? As what type of jobs can they have? What type of uh, abilities they need to develop for real life?
The limited, the children.
Yeah, so they cannot get a current job. Well, they cannot get any job. They have some limitations. But what type of skills do you want them to develop?
A teacher, for example, the children with the uh, Asperger, no, no hablaba.
They don't talk much. So would you want them to talk, right? You wanted them to socialize.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one skill that needs to be developed in that type of population. Social skills.
I
Has
remember.
any,
Yes,
any other thing about that experience?
Teacher?
Freddy.
Okay, according to the video, one aspect that I consider is positive in order to serve teachers before teaching is the desire to leave teaching, to love what is done. But according to Howard Gardner, that it was taken in a video, people has multiple intelligences and more than all emotional intelligence. um, the human being need a holistic intelligence because normal students just have the sense that the classes are the same and they are boring. We need to try changing that one. Maybe if we try another curriculum, maybe with a formal writing, and maybe to change the administrative education more than anything else, because it is emanated by the state under models of terrorism.
Freddie, when you mentioned that you mentioned the idea of emotional intelligence, uh, well, I think about if there is any job that doesn't need that a person develops their emotional intelligence, so being able to work with others. So I guess all
Yes.
jobs need that. If all jobs need that, we need to have students work more often in person in groups, so they learn how to be leaders in a group or make decisions in groups or agree or disagree in a polite way, right? As
Yes.
all that lead us, as Henry mentioned at the beginning, to the 21st century skills. And that is the topic that you are reading this week.
Yes, teacher. Yes, we must understand all senses from people and from children at all in order to we try changing their lives in order to set a good educational skills. maybe try changing all reviews from curriculums from another curriculums is just to set at good skills for future learners. Yes, that's it.
Okay, somebody else wants to add some ideas on what you learned from the movie?
Teacher.
Uh-huh.
Well, in the movie, teachers said that children have a lot of imagination and that they always want to learn new things, and that teachers are sometimes the people who ends with the imagination and creativity that students have. So I think that we need to be very careful because we could end the imagination, and we could kill the life of a children of a child.
Of a child. Okay. What activities, Karen, do you consider that could be part of a project regarding the Bogota River? If the name of the project were Bogota River, what could be a good driving question for, let's say, high school students? What type of activities or can they carry out for a project that has that topic?
Well, I think, teacher, that maybe the question, the diving question, should be how can we save Bogota River?
Okay,
Uh,
that's a driving question for high school students or maybe also primary school students, so they have to research about different ideas.
So what was the question? Sorry.
Could you repeat the question, Karen?
how can how can we save the Bogota River?
Uh-huh. So that could be a driving question for a project. Okay, here we have other example of a project. We have primary school students exchanging information with students from India about Colombia. So the activities they carried out were scrapbooks that are photos with some labels, some sentences about the photos. They also wrote letters and they created some presentations to describe the country because the idea was to exchange cultural aspects with students from India, and Indian students were also doing the same. So they had to research about Colombia, important aspects of Colombia to inform those uh, children from the other country. They read poems, and then they had, what is it? They had a video conference. They use for the video conference. They use a link that the British Council gave them to exchange the information. But this is, well, an example of a project that was interesting for the students because they were going to give information to other people who didn't know about the Colombia and vice versa. Indian students gave information to Colombian students about their country. So it was real exchange of information. They had to research and create the poems and create the scrapbooks and be creative with that. And other example was exchange of information, but not about, what is it? About here. Other projects were about celebrations in both countries, um, and animals and flowers and flora and fauna from each country. They seem like uh, common topics. The interesting thing was that they exchanged information for a real need for people who didn't know about it. That was interesting thing. What other projects, you guys mentioned some projects in your task. What other projects come to your mind that could be involve exchanging real information or interesting topics?
Teacher, just with actual aspects, maybe with this phenomena related to this COVID-19, maybe how do the students save money in a future? Maybe people try spending money every day, and we need to focus on what do the people need in a future. Maybe to save the patrimony, maybe to save a life, maybe to save all that they want. Maybe how to create something in order to survive. Yes, maybe.
That's a
Uh,
very good question. Like, how can you save money if you don't have anything sure about the future, or
yes,
what new project can you start?
yes, teacher. It will be a good question, or it will be a good activity in order to set in different schools, in
And,
different institutions, not only schools, maybe universities, maybe companies. Yes,
and
in order
that's
to
linked to
survive at
reality.
these moments. Yes.
Mhm. Okay, any other idea? Those of you who are teachers, you can ask your students, and they would have good ideas of projects. They would come up with good ideas of things that are interesting for them to research or to uh, find out about. So that sometimes we think we don't find a good question or a good topic, they can give us ideas. The same as students can give us ideas. Questions about project-based learning. Do you understand like everything that is needed before starting a project? No?
No, teacher, thank you.
No, teacher.
No comments?
Here's the part.
Okay. So we will meet next week for your questions about 21st century skills. That is what you are reading this week.
Nice, teacher. Perfect.
Okay, teacher.
Okay.
Thank you,
Good.
teacher.
Teacher.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you,
teacher.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Teacher.
Good night,
Good night.
teacher.
Bye bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, classmates.
Bye.
Bye, teacher. Thanks.
Bye.